Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we're back from the bye. It is now 2 byes done. It's the home stretch, 5 games for USC, each one important. But let's start with this first one on Saturday. It's USC versus Nebraska. I'm excited to preview this one.
Yeah, this is a huge week for USC football. I'm really excited for this matchup. This is two blue blood programs that have a ton of history individually, that they've been a staple in college football for a long time. And I know everyone's looking forward to that Oregon game in a couple of weeks up in Eugene, and then also playing UCLA at the end of the year for the Victory Bell. But to me, this is the most important game on the schedule. And why that is because this game sets the tone for the last four. We've got to prove that we can come out, take care of business on the road against a very good Nebraska football team after a loss, and then we have a bye. We've done it once before. Unfortunately, we lost to Illinois, had a bye week, got everything taken care of. I know that this team can do it because we've seen it a couple weeks ago. They come out against Michigan, play some really good football, and dominate in that football game. And then, unfortunately, we dropped one to Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. But now we have another bye. Get guys healthy, correct some of the mistakes, build off of some of the positives, and now we got to go take care of business in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm jealous that I don't get to go watch this one in person. We'll be talking throughout the game excited because I would love to go see that atmosphere. Everyone talks about it, the sold-out crowd, and I've spoken to some people throughout the week already. They say it is the real deal. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a great atmosphere. But either way, block all that out. Go out to Lincoln, Nebraska, handle business, get the win, get on the plane, and then come back to L.A.
Already excited to dive into it. Just a couple of reminders before we do. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the video version of this show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel, and you can also follow us on social media, Victory Pod USC. That's also where we put out a tweet or a question box asking for questions for our Wednesday episode, so look for it there. Alrighty, Cody, let's talk about this Nebraska team. It's interesting. I was looking at just overall stats, and I don't really know what to make of this team, so I'm excited to hear your full film breakdown. But before we get into the film, what's your general overview about the Huskers?
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head right there. That there's really good in some categories, and then there's some areas that we can take advantage of this football team, and we'll get into that throughout this episode. I'm going to start with their head coach like I always do. Nebraska is led by Matt Rhule. This is his third season with the Cornhuskers. He's led them to a 12-13 record since 2023. So far this year, Nebraska is off to a 6-2 start, and they're 3-2 in the Big Ten. They have conference wins over Michigan State, over Maryland, and Northwestern most recently, and then their two losses are to Minnesota and then Michigan early on this season.
Now, looking at their offense, it's interesting because I feel like if last season we had previewed Nebraska at any other time, we would be like, here's a new name that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
But USC actually played Nebraska right when they made a change at coordinator. So we're kind of familiar a little bit with what we're going to see on Saturday. But take it away, Cody.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I went back to my notes from last year against Nebraska in this game, and that was when they made a change going from Marcus Scatterfield to Dana Holgorsen, who took over as the play caller for those last 4 games. They ended up giving him the full-time job. Now, this is his first full season as Nebraska's offensive coordinator. Holgorsen has been coaching since 1993, and he is responsible for some of the best and most explosive offenses in the history of college football. He is a great play caller. Through 8 games this season, Nebraska's offense is 58th in total offense, and they're 31st in scoring offense, averaging 35 points per game.
Well, let's get your takeaways from your film study. What did you see about this offense?
Yeah, this is a very unique offense. It's a spread offense at its core, but it has some pro-style tendencies to it. It's almost like a hybrid type offense to where they're going to run a lot of plays out of spread, especially in the pass game, but they will bring in some 2 tight end looks and get under center a good amount of times as well. And when they do get under center, you got to be ready for some downhill duo runs, which means double teams up to the second level, just straight at you football. You're going to see Rhule reverse out, turn around, hand it to their back, Emmett Johnson, but they're also going to run a good amount of play action off of that. So you can't just sell out when they get under center and expect them to run the football. You got to be ready for both. This is a balanced offense. Now, they relied more on the pass game this year. They've had more success, I'll say, in the pass game, but they've been right around 50-50 run to pass, but they're 26th in passing offense, and they're 101st in rushing offense. But I got to put an asterisk next to that. It doesn't tell the entire story, and that's because they really only have one guy in the backfield that's getting their carries. They only have one guy that's running the football, and that is Emmett Johnson. He has 146 carries this year on the offensive side of the ball. The next closest, Keely, is 16.
Wow.
He is their run game.
Yeah.
Rhule doesn't run the football. Normally when you see a rushing offense, it's at 101st. You expect, okay, they're not having any success running the football, but you can't take those numbers at face value because you don't have a running quarterback. You don't have a 1-2 combo. You don't have multiple guys running the football. It is all Emmett Johnson. Their rushing stats are just him. So, and he's a good back. He exploded last week against Northwestern. We'll talk about him a little bit more in the personnel grouping, but you can't just sell out this week and stop the pass. You got to also be ready to stop the run. And Nebraska, I promise you, was watching that film from the Notre Dame game last week where we gave up 300 rushing yards, so they're going to be a little bit more run-heavy this game. cold weather game, night game. I expect them to try to get the ground game going. Another thing, be ready for RPOs in the run game when they're in shotgun, not when they're under center, but when they're in shotgun, be ready for some RPOs. And it's not a ton of just zone read RPOs. And what I mean by that is, since Dylan Rhule is not a running quarterback, a dual threat quarterback, he'll read the defensive end sometimes, but it's not the same as Lincoln Riley's offense where it's a straight defensive end read every time. He's going to pull it and run or pull it and throw it. They will block that backside defensive end and instead leave the linebacker unblocked on the backside. So if he gets outside of the box or hesitates, I can give it. If he crashes down, now Rhule can pull it and throw a slant or a hitch that replaces that linebacker. So they're more of a second-level RPO read than they are reading the defensive end. And when he does read that defensive end and pulls it and gets on the edge, he's still looking to pass. When Viava does it, when other quarterbacks do it, Bryce Underwood, another guy that we played, that when they pull it and get around the edge, they're running downhill and they're trying to attack the line of scrimmage. When he pulls it, you can see him on film. He runs laterally, and he's looking for a guy to break open with their RPO game. So you've got to be ready to, you can't just, as soon as he breaks contain as a DB or linebacker, crash downhill, stay in coverage. He'll put you in a bind, but you've got to be disciplined this week. The other thing that they like to do is they like to use pre-snap motion, but they use it to gain leverage when it comes to their route concepts. And what I mean by that is, they will do some where they bring a tight end over, bring a wide receiver over across formation, get a man zone tell, is a corner running with them, is the linebacker shuffling, rock and roll and safeties, things like that. But majority of the time, they like to use motion to get a jump start on their routes. And what I mean is they'll bring a receiver down in short motion back towards the line of the scrimmage, snap the ball on the run, let him run a crosser. They like to motion them outside, let him get wide, snap the ball on the run an out route out of the backfield. Have the running back next to the quarterback, do a little hot motion where he does a couple shuffles to the outside to get him leverage on a linebacker on a swing route or a wheel route. They love to use Johnson out of the backfield. They do a lot of five-man pass concepts and go five-man protection. So you got to be ready to cover if you're a linebacker in this game on Johnson. The other thing that we need to be good at this week is our pass rush has to be dominant. Nebraska has struggled this year in pass protection. That is the biggest weakness on their offense. And it's a two-parter. I'm not going to put it just on their offensive line. They've had some injuries up front. These guys have struggled with some of their one-on-ones, but Dylan Rhule is a quarterback that loves to hold the football. If that first read is not there, he's not throwing it away. He's not going to find a check down. He's going to scramble. He's going to buy time. He's going to try to get outside of the pocket. He's going to try to make some moves and give the receivers time to get open. So we have to be very disciplined this week in our rush lanes. We can't just see red. Well, they're wearing black this week, but you can't see a black jersey and think, I'm selling out for the sack. I got him. You got to be ready for him to spin out, to step up, to do a couple different moves in the pocket and try to buy more time. But when he does that, there are sacks to be made. They're 128th in the country in sacks allowed. They've already given up 26 sacks this year. If this USC pass rush is for real, like we know they are, and like we've seen at times this season, this is the game to go out and prove it.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned at times, and we actually got a question about the consistency there. Louis said, essentially, he said, we've seen flashes. How do you get that 100% of the time or more consistent from this group?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Louis just said it. The key word for me is consistency. We have to prove on a week-to-week basis that we can dominate regardless of who the opponent is. We come out early in the season, play really good football, and then against Illinois, we struggle with our front seven, a game that we thought we were going to dominate in the trenches and get after the quarterback. We just didn't have that production in that game. And then after the bye against Michigan, flawless almost with our front seven. I mean, they had nothing going in the run game. Underwood never got comfortable. We were good in the secondary, gave up a couple big plays, but overall, I was very proud of that performance, and I thought things were going in the right direction. And then last week against Notre Dame, we talked about it on the recap episode, just not great discipline. Not great gap integrity, the rush lanes, everything, especially in the run game. You give up 300 yards rushing. There's just areas that they need to improve on, but they've got to be able to do it every single week. The good teams, the great defenses, they're consistent and they show up and show out every single week. This team can get there. They just got to go out and prove that. But what a great opportunity this week to go out and correct some of those mistakes and play great with our front seven against a good Nebraska football team.
Well, you mentioned the keys essentially for USC's front seven. In that sense, what do you need to see from USC's secondary on Saturday?
Yeah, like I mentioned, Dylan Rhule likes to run around. He likes to scramble. He likes to improvise, make some plays outside of the pocket. It's going to be important for our front seven with their rush lanes, with great discipline, but it's also equally important on the back end to cover for a longer amount of time than you're used to. When you have a quarterback like Rhule, the ball's not coming out quick. And obviously he'll play in rhythm at times. If there's a guy open, I'm not sitting and saying that every play is a scramble drill. He'll sit back there, take one step, throw a slant, throw a hitch, 3-step, throw a go ball. So he'll play in rhythm within the offense, but he likes to play off platform, to get outside of the pocket, to extend plays. When you're a DB, you have to understand that it's important this week to where you're not just covering for 3 to 4 seconds. You've got to cover for 7 to 8 seconds. Now, hopefully the pass rush gets home before that, but there are going to be times, it's inevitable, that he's going to get outside of the pocket. He's going to create with his legs. They're going to protect him with some of those chip routes or chip blocks by the running back, the tight ends, to get him on the edge, and then he's going to do his thing where he scrambles and runs around. As a DB, you have to understand if a guy's running a slant and he doesn't get the ball right away, the play's not over. Be ready for him to spin out of it, to work the scramble drill, to go back to the sideline. If you have an underneath route, a guy running a flat or a crosser doesn't get the ball initially, he's going to turn it upfield and run the scramble route, so you can't fall asleep as a DB. Now, with all that being said, though, this is a big week to make a play on the football because Dylan Rhule makes some very unique type plays. And what I mean by that is go back and watch the film. There's a play, I think, against Minnesota a couple weeks. He's falling down literally an inch from the ground, and he flips it to a receiver about 10 yards down the field.
Wow.
Makes the play. The DB almost makes a play on it, but he still gets it there. There's another play where they have a crosser coming from left to right. The defender grabs his right arm. He throws it left-handed to get it to the crosser. He just underhand over it, just all these different things. And he can get away with it, but that being said, we can make some plays on the football in the secondary. Now, you got to be hip-to-hip in coverage. You got to be able to be sticky this week and stay around the receiver to make those plays, but he's going to give you some opportunities. Only 6 interceptions so far this year, so he's been good at protecting the football, but there's a couple where he throws some turnover-worthy plays or turnover-worthy throws where you can make a play on the football. And then the last thing that we need to be ready for this week, I had to throw it in there, is be ready for some of those trick plays or gadget plays, especially down by the goal line. Think similar to Lincoln Riley here at USC, all the unique type of plays that he's ran over the years. Dana Holgorsen has that same type of playbook. I flash back against Michigan State. They have a play where Rhule is lined up at running back. They snap it to a tight end, I think was at quarterback, hand it to Rhule as if he's running a zone read type play. Then they pitch it to a receiver or to actually Emmett Johnson coming in motion across for a reverse, and the defense just didn't know where to go. So you've got to be disciplined this week. They're going to throw some things at you. This is the black shirt night. They're wearing the black jerseys. It's a sold-out crowd like it is every week. USC's coming to town. I expect Holgorsen to have a couple of those plays in the playbook this week. So just got to be great with discipline, build off of that game against Notre Dame, and just come out there and dominate on the defensive side of the ball and get back to playing defense like I know we can.
A couple follow-ups for you, Cody. First one is just me being curious, but you said that Holgorsen likes to run trick plays by the goal line. How much more creative do you have to be in play design to do that when the field is shrunk that much?
Yeah, it's more of a condensed type of trick play. You're not out in the field, so you're not going to see a flea flicker. You're not going to see a double pass with a deep post or a deep go ball or some of those unique type plays when you have a lot of room to work with. But down in the goal line, it's a lot of window dressing. It's a lot of guys moving sideline to sideline like they did against Michigan State. I mean, they snapped it, handed it to Rhule, the defense starts going right, and then they pitch it to Johnson coming back left. You just have to be disciplined. If you're that backside defender, you can't try to sell out and go over the top and make the play on the football. You have to trust that something's coming back to you and be in the right spot. But down there, too, expect maybe some running back double passes to where they'll pitch it to a running back, sell for a tight end like he's blocking, then sneak out to the flat, or just some play action. I know it's not quite a trick or gadget type play, but get in jumbo package, bring in multiple tight ends. All right, everything's telling me run. Great self fake. Hold the ball, hide it if you're a quarterback, and then sneak a tight end out in the flat like we do with Walker Lyons. So you've got to be ready for some of that stuff. But none of it matters if you're disciplined. If you're doing your job, if you're in the right spot, whether it's a trick play, it's a play action, it's any of that, or it's just a straight downhill run, if you're doing your job and you don't sell out on some of these fakes, then you should be in position to make the play.
Well, we're on the same page because my follow-up question actually builds off of what you just said. The key phrases or buzzwords after USC's loss to Notre Dame was doing your job, being disciplined. And I feel like when you know that there are plays to be made, like when you're sitting in the meeting room and you're like, hey, they allow 26 sacks so far this season, I'm going to be like, yes, let's get a sack.
Yeah.
Of course, I've never been a player,
That's
so
a
I
great
don't
point,
know.
though, no.
But how hard is it to, if on a certain play, your assignment is to be the quote-unquote boring one to do whatever, how hard is that to not chomp at the bit and maybe do too much?
Yeah, that was perfect the way that you asked that, and that's a key word right there. Sometimes boring is the right play, right? And I flash back to being a quarterback. I always talk about Superman versus Clark Kent. There's times that I want to throw the post to Nelson Aguilar, but maybe it's triple covered, and I know it's not the right time. It's a little more risky, so I'm just going to take the flat route to Buck Allen on the check down, let him pick up 4 or 5 yards, and then come back to that play later. The same thing on defense. As a DB, there might be a time where you see the ball in the air and you want to sell out and go try to make the pick, but it might not be the time for that. Let's just break down, make the tackle, and then wait for a better opportunity later. You can coach that to an extent, right? There's a level of coaching to where you say, all right, be disciplined, gap integrity, those things, being in the right spot, that's important. But when it comes time to be a football player and make a play, you've got to go back and forth between the risk-reward. Do I sell out to make this play and potentially give up a touchdown, or do I break down, make the smart play, and then wait for a better opportunity later? That's why it's tough to play at this level. It happens in a millisecond. You got to make those decisions on the fly. You can coach a guy up as much as you want, but there's also an instinctive side of it to where you've got to make the play in real time. But yeah, it's tough. That's a great question. It's hopefully I explained that right. Gives you a little bit of a mindset of what a player is going through on the field. But it's a really difficult place to be in, especially on the road with all the noise, everything going on. You want to be the hero. You want to make the play. But like you said, sometimes just be boring, make the right play, and wait for that hero play later on.
Well, as promised, Cody, I want to look at Nebraska's key personnel on offense. Now, I believe you said already a couple of them, but go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I got 2 red dots actually this week on offense.
Okay.
More, not necessarily because of what they're doing, but red dots for USC's defense to improve on. And I'll get to that in a second. But the first one's obviously the quarterback, Dylan Rhule. 72% completion percentage this year, 1,900 passing yards, 17 touchdowns. Like I mentioned, 6 interceptions. Been better at protecting the football, but he will give you some opportunities to make a play on the ball. And look, I mentioned that he likes to scramble and do all these different things. I wasn't saying that in a bad way because that is a positive. That's something that he's really good at because he will hurt you. There'll be times it's third down and you think the play's over and we've got him wrapped up, and he'll buy time and find a big play down the field, and that is a backbreaker for a defense. So we've got to be great this week against him. But my second red dot player is running back Emmett Johnson. Now you may look at me and say, well, Cody, you said they were 26 in passing offense and 101st in rushing offense. Like I mentioned, the reason that it isn't as much is because there's only one guy doing all the work, and that is Emmett Johnson. And the reason I put him at a red dot this week is because of USC's performance last week against Notre Dame. We have to make it a point of emphasis to stop the run. Last week against Northwestern, Nebraska ran the football at will. Emmett Johnson was running, had over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. He will hurt you if you don't have great gap integrity and you're not making plays in the backfield. So far this year, 146 carries, 837 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's averaging just under 6 yards per carry. He's a dangerous runner. Really good with the football in his hands. He can run through you. He can run around you. And he's dangerous out of the backfield as well. 31 receptions, 182 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then the guys on the perimeter that this secondary has to be ready for. The first one is wide receiver Isaiah Hunter, 6'1", 205-pound sophomore from California. He's their leading receiver right now. 33 receptions, 525 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And their second guy they want to get the ball to is wide receiver Ja'Cory Barney Jr. He had a good connection last year with Dylan Rhule. We talked about him in preview episode when they played Nebraska a season ago. He has 30 receptions, 378 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then Raiola's safety blanket this year. And another challenge for this USC defense is tight end Luke Lindenmeyer. He's 6'3", 250-pound junior, 24 receptions, 263 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's really good with Rhule when the play breaks down in that intermediate level, working the scramble drill.
Alrighty, Cody, I want to move over to Nebraska's defense. Before we do, just want to give thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. Now, as promised, Nebraska's defense, who is leading the Black Shirts this week?
Yeah, they are called the Black Shirts. And for those of you that don't know, this story goes all the way back to 1964 when Bob Devaney was their head coach. He sent his assistant coach, Mike Corgan, to go get some practice jerseys at a local sporting goods store because they needed to differentiate between the defense and the offense at practice. When Corgan got there, they only had black jerseys available. He brought those back to practice. The defense wore them. The starters wore them, and then it became history, or it became a tradition from there. So now it's earned by practice players. You got to earn the black shirt. The starters normally are awarded those, or guys that play well on the defensive side of the ball, they earn their black shirts. And ironically enough, they are wearing black jerseys in this game. So it's going to be a great matchup between USC's offense going up against the Black Shirts. This year, the Black Shirts are led by defensive coordinator John Butler. This is his second season at Nebraska, but his first as their defensive coordinator. Last year, he served as their safeties coach. Then he became the defensive coordinator for one game in the bowl game before getting the full-time job. Butler has spent time both in the NFL and at college. Very experienced coach, and he's got Nebraska off to a really good start on defense this year. The Cornhuskers are 12th in total defense, and they're 30th in scoring defense, only giving up 19 points per game. They've struggled at times stopping the run. They're 90th in rushing defense, but where they have excelled is against the pass. They're second in the entire country in pass defense. This is going to be a great challenge for Jade Mayav and these USC wide receivers.
It's funny you say that because I actually watched Butler's presser this week talking about USC, and he said this is going to be a big challenge for their defense. He's kind of a personality, too. He was kind of funny being like, I'm up all night. I'm studying this. There's so many weapons that they have. Lincoln Riley's offense, which is just funny. But
I promise you Lincoln Riley's up all night, too, studying Butler's defense. It's going to be a great matchup.
In that sense, Cody, what did your film study reveal?
Yeah, this is a defense that will constantly show you different personnel groupings and different fronts throughout the entire game. They're going to get in some 4-down fronts. They'll get in some 3-down fronts. Be ready for some 3-3-5 this week, which is a nickel defense for them. You'll see 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. That 5th DB is that nickel linebacker just to bring in an extra cover guy. I expect them to do that a lot. this week against USC because of how pass heavy we are right now, especially with Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders out. So it's going to be a challenge. There are going to be a lot of bodies in the secondary. Got to be great with your throws this week. If I'm Miami, got to throw guys open in man and find those holes when they're playing zone. Also be ready for some of their different pressure packages this week because this is a 3-3-5 defense. They only have 3 down linemen, and they have 8 different guys on the back end. That gives them more versatility and different combinations they can do with their pressure looks. They'll bring a single linebacker. They'll bring double linebackers. They'll bring a single safety. They'll bring corner. They'll bring so many different things to where if you fall asleep and you get caught off guard, they're going to get to your quarterback in the backfield or they're going to get a tackle for loss in the run game. So we have to be great with communication this week. Crowd noise is going to be a factor. It is. It's difficult for a quarterback and a center to communicate. It's also difficult for a center, guards, and tackles to communicate as well. So we just have to over-communicate this week, like Danton Lynn likes to say on the defensive side of the ball. That has to be present with the offense between Jaden Maiava and John Ray Reed. Now, talking about the 3-3-5 defense and why I think they've struggled against the run this year, when you have 3 defensive linemen, it makes you more vulnerable to big-time plays on the ground game. You take out a bigger body defensive lineman, you bring in a smaller linebacker to help out in coverage, there's big plays to be made on the ground. Offensive line has to be physical this week. They have to dominate in the run game. I know we're missing Jordan. I know we're missing Sanders. King Miller and Brian Jackson have to get going. This can't be a game where we come out against this pass defense that's been so well this year and try to throw it 50 times. We have to be balanced. We have to, on the road, I always say pack your run game, pack your defense. We've got to get things started on the ground. That will then open up some of the plays in the secondary and we can start pushing the football down the field. Another thing with this, too, is identification is key, both in pass protection and run blocking. It's tough. You're used to seeing 4 down fronts. You're used to seeing 3-4 defenses to where I can just make one of the defensive linemen or one of the outside linebackers a down lineman and then make my calls from there. When you have a 3-3-5, it's a lot more difficult because you don't see it a whole lot, knowing who's that 4th down lineman, who's the Mike, who's the Will, who's the Sam. So we have to be perfect in our film study this week and our preparation, because if you're not and they start showing you these different looks and these different fronts, they're going to make some big plays in the backfield. We can't let that happen. Have to win on 1st and 2nd down so we can stay out of those 3rd down situations where the crowd gets involved.
Well, you mentioned that this is the number 2 passing defense in the nation. What do they do well in that sense?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. The first is they have great personnel in their secondary. The other thing that they do a good job of is disguising their coverages on the back end. Butler is very good at showing you something pre-snap and then changing that post-snap. And like I mentioned, as much as they can mix up pressure looks with their front 6 or front 7 in this defense, they can also mix up a lot of different coverages in the back end. You essentially have 7 or 8 guys in coverage almost every single play, and you can show man and then get to zone. You can show zone, get to man. You can walk everybody up and look like cover 0 and then drop 8, especially on 3rd down. They do a great job of mixing all of those things up. But with that being said, there are big plays to be made in the secondary. There's a couple times on film that they're going to give up some sluggo routes. They're going to give up some go routes over the top. This is an aggressive secondary. They're disciplined. They do a good job of being in the right spot, but we talk about opportunistic plays and being, when to make it, when not to. This is a defense that's experienced, so they know when to make those. But if you can lull them to sleep with a couple slants, a couple hitches, and then get a double move off of it or take a shot down the field, there are plays to be made. It's just not a lot of them. So we've got to be perfect when we have those opportunities. I expect some short throws to Lake McCree, to Walker Lyons, even Lemon and Lane to get things going, but then be ready for Lincoln Riley to open it up and take some of those shots over the top to Jacoby Lane and let Mekhi Lemon try to run by some guys on the secondary. And then the last thing that we always talk about is 3rd down. This is another week, same story. They are very good at disguising looks up front, pressure looks, their coverages, everything. They're going to walk guys up. They're going to overload one side. They got double A gap packages with their linebackers. They're going to drop defensive ends. Everything that they have, or everything we've talked about, they have in their playbook. So you've got to be ready for it all. Another week for Jaden Maiava, John Ray Reed to go sit down together, watch film, study what they do on 3rd down. It's a game within a game. Watch 1st and 2nd down, your base downs, and then the next day go in there and watch all 3rd downs and dedicate a day to practice of that, which you do throughout the week. So we've got to be great in this situation. It's going to be loud. You're not going to be able to be perfect with your communication. You got to trust your film study throughout the week. Know that you guys are on the same page and then play off of that. Another thing, this is a big week for Jaden Maiava to use his legs when the play breaks down. Design run, sure. Get some zone read stuff, pull it and take off around the edge. I'm fine with that. But when the play breaks down, especially on 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 8, and no one's there in the pass game, the defense gets out of their pressure look or their backs are to you because they're in man-to-man, take off and run. Go get 10 yards, get out of bounds or get down and extend the drive. He has to do that this week, especially with the injuries that we've had to the running back room. Great pre-snap recognition. Know that it's going to change post-snap. Be disciplined. Don't make a bad play worse. All the cliches that I say, that is applied to this game. You have to be perfect if you're Jade Mayava, because if you have some of those mistakes, not only do you hurt your defense and put them in a bad position, but you get the crowd back involved, and it gets louder and louder. So we got to capitalize on some of that. But I would love for Mayava, especially on third down, to use his legs this week and force this defense to have to cover him when he takes off and runs.
You mentioned in the recap episode for the Notre Dame game that Notre Dame's defense did a good job of selling out to take away Mekhi Lemon as an option.
Yep.
If you're Jaden Mayava, what learning lessons do you have from that game, if any?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of feeds off of what I just said. The first thing you do, obviously, is find Jacoby Lane, find Lake McCree, find Walker Lyons, find some of these backs out of the backfield. Tanuk Hines, another guy that I think is going to be important for these last 5 games, because we saw what Notre Dame did to Mekhi Lemon, and we talk about taking him out of the game plan. He still had 4 catches for 75 yards. So that's a pretty good day at the office for a lot of receivers in the country. But for him, it felt like a little less of the impact because of what he's been doing. But the other part of that is, if he's not there, if they're covering well on the back end, like I just mentioned, run. Just take off. Pick up a couple yards. Even if it's 4 or 5, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a home run every time you run. Just get some positive yards, get down, make it second and manageable or third and manageable, or pick up a first down on third down and extend the drive. That is a backbreaker for a defense, because teams are going to start selling out to stop the pass. That's what we are right now. I understand. I have full faith in King Miller and Brian Jackson, but I understand we lost our top 2 backs a couple weeks ago. Defensive coordinators know that. They know that we're depleted in the backfield. They know that we have some injuries up front with the offensive line. Our offense relies heavily right now on 14's arm. That's really what it is. They're going to sell out to stop the pass. He has to be a factor in the run game and hurt them with his legs this week and going forward really for the rest of the season.
Well, I want to look at key personnel on defense. Who should we look out for on Saturday?
Yeah, when you have a defense that's number 2 in the country, obviously I'm going to start with their secondary, and they've got some good guys back there. The first one that I'm going to mention is someone that's very familiar to USC Trojan fans, and that's Eure Wright. He's been all over the place. He's been playing some good football. They've had him at nickel. He's a corner last year. Now they got him at safety because of some of those injuries. We have to know where number 1 is at on the field. He's a really good player back there in the back, and he's a captain for this defense. The other safety and another captain for this team that you have to know where he is both in the pass game and the run game is Deshaun Singleton, 6'3", 210-pound senior. They like to use him down in the box. They'll put him as the middle safety. He'll make some plays on the football. When I mentioned that they like to bring secondary pressure, he is the guy that they're going to blitz off the edge. Number 8, keep an eye on him, because he'll have a 3-down look, and then he'll walk down like he's playing that linebacker-type spot like Kamari Ramsey does, and then at the snap, he's coming under pressure. So if I'm a running back in pass protection, I got to know that I got to account for him. He's got 39 tackles this year and 2 interceptions, so he's been playing some good football. And because of some of those injuries, like I mentioned, they've also had to have some young guys step up. The first one to keep an eye on is Rex Guthrie. He's a freshman safety who's second on the team right now in tackles with 39. And then the other one is freshman corner Donovan Jones. He's been playing some better football lately. He had an interception last week against Northwestern. Nebraska also has a very talented linebacker, and my red dot player of the week on defense, Javen Wright. He leads the team right now with 52 tackles. He also has an interception on the year. He's a 6'5", 230-pound senior. He is everywhere on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to stop the run. He's going to rush the passer. He's going to drop and cover well in the back end. You just have to know where number 0 is at all points in this game. And then the other guys that are next to him is Vincent Shavers Jr., 6'1", 225-pound sophomore. And then the other linebacker to keep an eye on is Marquess Watson Trent, 27 tackles and 1.5 sacks so far this year. And then up front, USC's offensive line has a couple guys that they need to be ready for. I know it's only a 3-down look majority of the time, but those 3 defensive players are some physical guys. The first one is Williams Winery, 6'7", 265-pound defensive lineman.
It's a big boy.
Have to be ready for him. And then the other one I mentioned, with this 3-down look, they can turn it into a 4-down look because of this guy. His name is Dasan McCullough. He is their pressure guy off the edge, hybrid type rush defender. They're going to bring him on some pressure looks. They're going to drop him into coverage. He has 16 tackles and 2 sacks so far this year.
And fun fact, if McCullough sounds familiar to USC fans, it's because he's the son of Dylan McCullough, who was the running backs coach for USC in 2017. So a little family ties there, former Trojan family. It'll be interesting to see that matchup on Saturday.
Trojan family's a real thing, but when it comes to Saturday, he's on the other side of the ball. But no, he's a really good football player. He's going to be someone that USC has to be ready for on Saturday.
Now, I know this is crazy, but if I may, I'm going to call an audible and submit to you a red dot player of my own for this week.
What?
I know, and even crazier, it's on special teams, which is we often neglect on this show.
We give special teams some love here, but
some love.
Yeah,
but
no, you're calling
not.
us out for good reason.
Well, that being said, I want to highlight Kenneth Williams. He actually leads the nation.
That's a great point.
Kickoff returns average. He actually took one to the house against Northwestern this past game for Nebraska. So just something to watch for. Special teams is always important, and we neglect it. So I just want to make sure we highlight it so you're not just watching the game on Saturday and you're like, what? They didn't tell us about this guy.
for those of you that think I'm the only football mind in this show, look at Keely watching her film, doing her prep. No, that's a great call on your point, and especially after last week. against Notre Dame, right? We take the lead in that game, have some momentum, and then we have a kickoff return for a touchdown on the next kickoff. So we've got to be better. He's a guy to pay attention to this week. That's a really good call on your part.
Alrighty, Cody, I want to head over to questions. Only a couple this week, but before you just want to give thanks to Ralph's. At Ralph's, you get high quality and low prices, so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. First question comes from Trojan Mom. She said, which is your mother.
Of course it is.
She said, is this a must-win game for USC if it wants to be in the playoffs?
Yeah, if USC wants any opportunity to get into the college football playoff, they have to win these last 5 games. Now, I don't know if that'll be good enough to get to a conference championship because you have Ohio State, Indiana at the top of the conference. They're undefeated, and we don't play either of those teams. We do play Oregon, who has 1 loss, so we have an opportunity to potentially jump up to that 3rd spot. Don't know if it'll be good enough to get us into the conference championship, but I believe a 10-2 Big Ten team can sneak into the college football playoff. But again, we're looking far ahead. You got to worry about this game. This one, like Trojan Mom 06, my mom said, is a must-win if we want a chance to get to the playoffs. And that's why I said this game is most important, because I know everyone's got the Oregon game circled. We've got the UCLA game circled. But if you win this one, that sets the tone for the last 4, and it gives you momentum going into the last stretch of the season.
Sean Tong said Minnesota got 9 sacks against Nebraska. Do you think USC can get 9 at least on Saturday?
Yeah, I don't know if they can quite get to 9, Sean Tong. That's a lot of sacks. And I watched the Minnesota game. They just dominated up front. Nebraska could not get anything going on either side of the football. But I do have faith that this defense can get back on track. We saw how good they were early in the season. At one point, they led the nation in sacks, that they were top 5 in tackles for loss. So I know that it's there. It's just about being consistent and being disciplined. But I have full faith in Danton Lynn and this defensive front and this front 7 that they're going to have a big impact on this game on Saturday.
Okay, so the context for this next question is that we got a question a couple episodes ago asking if you would ever get into coaching. You gave the backstory that you thought about it, but then you're like, broadcasting, I'm going to chill a little bit on the 24/7 football life or being invested. So Chris said, I know what you said about coaching, but what if USC came calling? Would that change your mind?
I would say this. If I ever did coach, this would be the dream job. Obviously, I would love to coach here or at least start here and work up the ranks here and then – or start somewhere else and then end up here would probably be even better. But yeah, if USC called, I'd have to consider it. Obviously, it'd be a conversation that I would have with my wife and go from there. But right now, I really don't have any interest. Things are going so well. Big part of that is because of support from you guys, but things are going so well right now with broadcasting and the other show I'm doing and all the stuff with USC athletics, and the future's looking bright, I guess, and it's a cliche way of saying it. When it comes to the broadcasting side of things, and I've worked so hard, it'd be tough for me to just throw all that away and then start over again in the coaching field. But I don't know, man. I love football so much. All I do, I go home, I hang out with my wife, I hang out with my son, I hang out with my dog, and then the other hours that I spend of the day are watching all 22 film of NFL or college. So I'm fully invested. I think it's something that I know I would enjoy. It's just a time commitment right now with a newborn and a family and all of that. I think is the toughest part with everything. But who knows? I'll never say never. But right now, it would take a lot to pull me away from broadcasting and being a family man back home.
I love how you continue to say newborn, and we're like a month away from his first birthday.
Yeah, he's 10 months old now. Yeah, I know. We're almost, newborn, I feel like they're a newborn all the way up until they're 1. I guess toddler technically is what they are, or
baby.
infant, I think is what the stage is actually that he's in. My son Brooks, shout out Brooks. But it's awesome too, by the way. He's talking, he's blabbering, he's standing up on his own. He's doing things that
so cute.
Just weeks ago you thought was so far away, but yeah, that's right there. You got me. This is exactly why it'd be tough for me, because college football is an 11.5-month job. You're coaching in the spring, you're coaching in the fall, you're recruiting in the summer. There's just all off season you're recruiting. It's tough to just say, all right, I'm going to give that up when I've got something else I'm doing and go back to coaching. But again, I'm not going to lie, I have that itch. There's a little bit of me that's always thought about it. But again, that's a great question. I don't know if it would be any time in the near future, but I'm not going to say never. Well,
for the time being, you will be Coach Cody on this podcast.
There we go. I'm coaching everybody else up.
Yeah, you get our minds right before Saturday. Yeah. But the last question, or I guess not question, the last statement comes from Evan, who said, I'll be there at the game, so please say hi. I always say this. Don't say that I'm big timing people, but I will say.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
I know. I was about to say, please just tell me your name, or like, hey, this is my username, and I always submit questions under this. That helps me because I'm just like, hi, I'm happy to see you. Yeah. But like, please give me a name or something to help, because I like connecting the face with the name,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Evan's a friend of the show from Bakersfield. Shout out Evan, the 661. But I give Keely a hard time. I always say she's big time. We joke around. She's not. We love that stuff. No, we love when you guys come up to us to the games. We've had it happen multiple times. Keely's more big time than me. That's what I'll say. She's got the shades on and
Cody
no
bingo.
Photos, please. But
Check it off on the Cody Bingo. Keely
all jokes
big time.
aside, like the community that we've built here, the support.
So
anytime
fun.
we can meet you guys in person, we always, at the game, hey, great episode, or
Yep.
hey, we listen to the Victory podcast, or hey, maybe the episode wasn't great. Give us criticism. We'll take it. We like the constructive criticism. But either way, we love our fan base. You guys are amazing. Any chance you have to say hi to us at the game, please do.
Well, in that sense, Cody, take it home. It's time to wrap it up. That's all we have.
Let's lock in. Let's go. Nebraska week, black shirts on the road, Memorial Stadium, sold out crowd. 85,000 are going to be screaming at you and wanting US. Well, let's say 82,000 because there's going to be about 3,000, including the band that are in Cardinal and Gold at the top of that stadium. Let's go get a win. Take care of business. Handle this road game the right way. Get on the plane, come back to LA, and then get ready for these last 4. Fight on. Love you guys. Let's get this done.
It's going to be cold. I'm excited for this one.
How cold? Real quick. Weather report before we outro. The music's playing probably already. Well, how cold is it going to be?
Right now, the high is like 48.
That's not cold,
Low
Keely.
of
We're all right.
The wind chill, Cody. I
Ooh.
said this on Trojans Live. The wind chill might make it feel like 10 degrees colder.
Hey,
Not sure.
Make sure you guys watch Trojan Tailgate Show. Keely will give you a live update from the stadium on the weather.
It'll be me going burr. I'm not even on camera, but I'll be saying burr in the microphone.
Hey, fight
How
on,
about that? Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for this week's preview episode. We'll be back with a recap recording on Sunday. But that's going to wrap it up. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.